try again. Uh, Sorry about this. Paul Hunter will be discussing George how do you pronounce your name?
Koszulinski.
Koszulinski's forthcoming book, which is the winner of the inaugural winner of Raven Chronicles Keepers of the Fire Prize for Fiction. This is the first year we've done this, and we have one for fiction and one for nonfiction. And George is an award-winning writer-director who has been producing films since 1999. George's forthcoming feature documentary, A Map of the World in Time, was filmed in 34 days at sea in the Arctic Circle. It's not released yet. He recently wrote and directed the award-winning feature film Red Earth 2023, which won a jury prize at the Atlanta Film Festival and Best Feature Film at the New York SciFi Film Festival. Paul Hunter his first collection of farming poems, Breaking Ground, won the 2004 Washington State Book Award. Davida Art and Books in Sisters, Oregon, has been publishing a lot of his books. They published the prose poetry, wonderful book, Clownery, in lieu of a life spent in harness in 2017, and his contemporary Western novels, which he's working on another one right now. Sit a Tall Horse in 2020, which won a Will Rogers Medallion Award. Mr. Brick and the Boys in 2022, and Untaming the Valley 2024. Desert Crossings is coming out this year, later this year, we hope. So Paul Hunter will take it over now.
Thank you, Phoebe.
Hi, George.
Hey, Paul. It's so good to see you. How are you doing?
Doing good. Um, let's talk about reading.
I would love to do
Because,
that.
yeah, because I was thinking about uh, Brautigan has this quote at the beginning of Trout Fishing in America that says, there are seductions that should be hanging in the Smithsonian alongside the spirit of St. Louis. And every writer needs to figure out a way to seduce the readers. And you have a particular problem with this book, a particular set of things that maybe we don't want to hear.
Mm.
So I was going to ask you, um, how do you where in this book did you put the beauty or the seduction or the sweetness to
Yeah, I
for us
love
to find?
it's gonna be fun. I mean, I guess my first response to that is I don't know that it is my responsibility to make anything seductive. I mean, yeah, I feel like my only responsibility is to the story and to these characters. And but that said, I think there is beauty in buried in there. Maybe resilience is a better word than beauty for what I'm describing, but there there's something affirmative in there. But I mean, again, I is it really our job as storytellers to seduce? I mean, we want to draw a reader in,
Yeah.
but it's not a beautiful world that I paint. I mean, I don't know, look out your window right now. I mean, what's, a reflection of reality right now it may not be called for to write a beautiful thing or a seductive thing at the moment. But anyway,
Okay.
those are my initial reactions to
Good point. Good
I
point.
like what you asked though. It's a really
Out out the window, it's shades of gray here. But
Yeah, yeah.
but what what I was really thinking about is that when I was looking for beauty in your book, and I've read it coast to coast 4 times. And nature without man seems to be the answer that you're offering me. Nature without man. All
yeah.
those birds, all those little lives, all that other stuff that is prospering in spite of, well, probably because there aren't so many humans around.
No, I mean I think you're right on. It's like a multi-species book. I mean, not that anything but a human's gonna read it,
Uh,
but
uh,
if you're a bird or if you're any other creature, this book would be like a utopian paradise. It'd be the exact thing you wish you would it would come to fruition, not just read it in a story. What, imagine you're one of those creatures she describes. It's like, isn't this great? We got rid of the industrialized people that were extracting all of the things from the planet and creating this multi-species peril event. And yeah, I mean, she sees that beauty, and
Yes.
you're right. I mean, absolutely.
Well, I'm going to let you off of that completely and move on. Um, I wondered if we hear a lot from the dead man. We do, and he's a kind of philosopher. He's also an evildoer with that invasion through the eye sockets. Uh,
Mm.
but I wondered, did you feel more like the dead man or more like Jane Ballard as you were
Yeah.
writing?
I mean, so I think the honest answer to that question is that both of those characters, the whole thing, which I guess is another way of saying the whole narrative thing we
Sure.
encounter. One of the last things I read right before I started writing this, what became the book, was Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. And I'd always known of that book but I'd never read it. And I was like, I need to read this book right now. And I did. And this sort of thesis that I pull out of that book, I mean, I think is sort of the central point of the book, is amongst these perpetrators, there were good people. And he describes that from his experiences as a survivor. And then amongst the survivors, he encountered evil. And those two characters you're describing, I mean, I think all of us are some of both of them. I think Dead Man, I mean, I think evil is a word you could use to describe potentially both of them. Again, it's all ideological. It's how you see the world, but they have some affirmative qualities. And I think that's like, I mean, I think that's like a principle of storytelling. Like, the villain has to have something human that you go, well, the antagonist, I understand where they're coming from. It's just they've made a choice, and it's a dark one. And then the protagonists have to have these weaknesses, which are just reflections of what it is to be human. So, but all of that was from that book, really was an inspiration to figure out both of those characters from the start.
Yeah.
It's a lot of other stuff, but yeah. But I guess I'm more like Dead Man, if to answer your question directly, because no, you know what? I can't say that. No, I mean, a writer is all of the characters, right? It's all just a creative
Sure.
imagination. I mean, they're all extensions of I mean, you call them even a philosopher. Like it's the dialogue. I mean, that's rooted in philosophy. That's where the word comes from.
Sure.
They're basically having a dialogue, and that dialogue is just an author, and the author's just me. So yeah, I'm both of those characters, but I can't really relate to either of them either on a personal level, because again, that's what history is for. It's like I don't have, we study history, but I wasn't there, right? It's like I've got to examine the past and then kind of reflect on it. And those two characters are that space for me to do it.
Wow. Wow. Well, one of the things, um, a next way to think about readers looking at this book, I, I, I I was looking for the hook. I was saying, where's the hook? What's the thing that I can't spit out that I want to know more about? And it turned out for me that was the feed, what you call the feed, which is the alternate reality of social media, I guess. 'Cause I don't know how you would define the feed, but that that hooked me. It made me want all the rest of it. Made me because I can feel it. I don't like it, and I can feel it, and I get sucked in by it.
Yeah. No, I mean, and it's disturbing. I mean, yeah, just to describe it, the feed, I mean, really, it's just an extension of our current reality. And as even since having written it in the fall and where we're at now, like, and because you've read it, you see the gap between what I'm imagining and what is real is narrowing by the day.
Yeah.
And you could say in some way the cinema was the first proto. I mean, actually, back to philosophy, you go all the way to Plato's cave. Like that's the proto feed. It's like, look, the images you're seeing are not real. And I think that's like a central part of the whole book of like, what is real? That's a serious question, especially in the world we live in. Like people can't even parse out what's real. And that's before AI. I'm just talking about the world outside our window. Perception, as it were. But yeah, the feed is insidious, right? It's the idea that in the version of the world I created, this thing we're looking at right now, this computer, maybe you're not real, maybe I'm not real, right? Like, and we already live in a world where that's already plausible, right? Like the idea of a deep fake, which is, not a new idea. Like, but now with AI, it's like, did an event even occur in front of this camera? That's the radical shift of our historical moment, is that
Yeah.
it's like when painting came to photography, radical shift. Now we could produce a representation of reality without a paintbrush, but at least we knew, oh, something happened in front of the camera. Now we don't know that, right? It's like we're beyond that. And a generation or two from now, if we make it that far,
Yeah.
I could see it as a full immersion. But I thought you were going to say the encyclopedias, actually, because you talk about readers, and that was actually another source of the beginning for me, was um, the literal encyclopedia, like
Sure.
thinking about the nature of like how we historicize or engage. Most of us in the 21st century, I'm going to read the paper, but I'm reading off my computer screen or I'm watching a video. But I thought of just this idea that I remember as a kid, and maybe the last generation to remember it. My grandmother had it, my parents, we had it. The whole of human history could be in these 26 volumes. Like it's an antithetical feed. Or a proto feed, however you think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you've got these serious thinkers and serious people, and the five survivors. They seem random, and yet I think I found myself thinking, do they have some through line, something that links them all as survivors? Because, every human in the educational game, every human um, knows that we're really we're really just a heartbeat away from a lethal mistake. And we all get to feel like survivors. We jump back when the bus is passing. We don't run into the bus. We try not to. But here's Jane, and she's a Marine. She's a black Marine. And she's been killing people without remorse for quite a long time. And I think, does that make a survivor? I couldn't figure out how she got to be, or anybody that you offer us. You've got five people plus a guy on the moon, and so a few other people on the moon, but we don't know what constitutes surviving. And is it sheer luck? Were you following that as just a sheer?
Do you mean that in the sense of like who ended up surviving this virus X, as they call it, or do you mean
Yeah.
more on a story level?
No, I meant, yeah, how do we, is it just a cast of the dice?
Yeah. So I should say there's also a sister book that I'm kind of in the phase of wrapping up, called Notes from Lunar Underground, because you mentioned this guy on the moon
Sure.
who, imagine the trillionaire one or two generations from now that's continuing these technocratic desires. And the way that it's articulated up there is like, think of any kind of a virus that was even as close to 100% lethal. It still would be 99.99% deadly. And that would still leave a lot of people alive, right? So, as you say, it's a roll of the dice. Something even 99.99% effective, if you think about the billions of people on Earth, pure chance. As you said, like the bus coming in front of you, well, But if you didn't see it, it's like, it's just, this is what happens. Everybody's wiped out. And then these people, of which in that I speculate in Notes from Lunar Underground, many other people survive, but a question that's explored in Future X is how do you survive without community? Um, that's not a human, that's not how we evolved. We are, like the idea of a lone wolf is just a kind of a mythical idea. It's not really possible, right? Like we need community. We need migration is actually the defining element of our species. Like that's the only thing we do that we do better than every other creature on the planet is we can travel really long distances and we need to survive, right? It's like, and we do it together, right? It's like
Yeah,
groups of 70 people was like a number I remember reading about years ago, like of a tribe, right? That's enough people to really look out for each other. And if you had more, you could break into two tribes.
sure.
Uh, so how do you make it alone is a question of Future X. And the answer is you don't. Um,
Or
and
you
that's her goal. She's got to find people.
or you take somebody inside you, like Jane takes the dead
Dead
man
man.
inside,
Yeah.
And it gets into her consciousness, and he's pretty soon he's knocking on her door.
Yeah, I think this again is just imaginative speculation, but I feel every single human being, it's just a timeline. And what's your timeline
Yeah,
before, you're, talking? And I mean, we do that even in the act of reading or watching a movie or
sure.
a dream. Dreams that happens, almost nightly. Like you're talking to people that aren't there, or you read a book and that voice is manifested. Of course, you distinguish between reality and fiction, but my point is there would come a threshold where in a world like that is presented in Future X, where the distinction between fiction and nonfiction or reality and imagination, that would just evaporate. And you can't even call it insane because insanity itself is a kind of relative term, like how one behaves relative to all the other people, and that's how normal and oh, you don't function in society, but there is no society, there's no insane. Like what she's
Yeah.
doing is perfectly normal because there's no counterpoint to even reference in her new reality.
Wow. Wow. The I was going to ask you if you have are you gonna get Viola Davis or Halle Berry to star in the movie?
Those would be yeah, some kind of, speaking of dreams, right? Like a
Yeah,
dream scenario. Um, yeah, that would be wild. I mean, Jane Ballard is because you mentioned she's a Marine and she is remorseless in her experiences in the war that's described there. But um, like I guess I should mention, I wanted to also create a character that was sort of the antithesis to, you might remember, like, I don't know if you've seen like the Vincent Price Last Man on Earth or Charlton Heston as Omega Man, which was
sure.
just another adaptation of I Am Legend. And then even Will Smith, in I Am Legend. It's like so there's a common denominator. First of all, like you have the two white males, and then you have all males. And I was like, I would like to see a version of this world explored, contemporary, where it's not those, like I want to see some other characters, some other figures, and Jane Ballard, and also someone that was antithetical to Dead Man. He was created first, I should say. It
Yeah,
was the encyclopedias, and then it was Dead Man, and then it was figuring out the question for me was who is going to find this guy on the highway a year later? And that was the protagonist. Like, at the time, I'm like, this is who I'm searching for. This is like total ideation phase of the story. And that's where Jane Ballard came
wow.
to mind, you know. Um,
Yeah,
and I love those films that I mentioned and the book, I Am Legend, but it's like
sure.
I want to see something else.
Yeah, and I like Jane Ballard. I mean, that's the her obscene expressions sometimes are bang on, and that's the thing. There, her reaction, her kind of boots, her initial reaction to anything is real. She's got a handle on herself, and that might be the Marine training, or it might be whatever in the hell she went through. But I'm convinced by this person who's ridden all over the world, all of her world on a bicycle. And she has a kit on her bicycle. She can manage the world on her bicycle.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, like, again, it's fictive, but she's not random in the sense of she's a character that I would say objectively, after you read the story, like, this woman actually would be better equipped to survive something like she encounters, because I would argue, like, it's in her personality, whether it's the training or otherwise. She's a survivor, right? Like, pre-virus, like, she's somebody who, from the experiences of her life, marine and otherwise, knows how to survive. And I mean, I would say that's like almost like her arch goal, even though she says, "Oh, I just want to get out to the desert." It's like she wants to survive, and I think she does know how to do that. She's mentally tough, physically tough. Yeah, so she was it was really kind of weird to say, but like a joy to just follow this person, create this. How is she going to make it through these scenarios and survive this mental anguish, and then just the physicality of, like, how do you survive in a world alone?
Yeah. You've got a couple of things that kind of reach out at the reader when you have her say, "I almost never touch the earth with my bare feet."
Mhm.
And then that's what she misses when she decides she's going to jump off the boat, So she wants to touch the ground again, and
I
walking
mean,
around on a deck doesn't cut it for her at all. The-
yeah, I think I mean, that actually relates to my own experience. So the documentary, The 34 Days at Sea,
Sure.
which for me was like another planet. It's not human. I mean, of course it's human because we're like our nature to explore, but it's an industrial machine that you're living on. Obviously this mechanized boat. It's like a need, right? It's physiological to walk on the earth. I mean, people today living in the world don't do that, right? It's like we're not walking on the bare earth. If you don't make that happen, industrialized world didn't design itself for your evolutionary needs. So you kind of have to make that happen. Um, and just encountering nature. Yesterday, I actually thought of you because we've had the conversations about the birds, and I saw 3 burrowing owls in my backyard. I have like a subtropical paradise going on back there.
Wow.
And I saw 3, and I'd seen 1 or 2 of them before, and I saw all 3 of these burrowing owls together. And they were kind of like in a row, like, so on the fence, and then I have like a ice cream bean tree, and like they were kind of hidden out there hunting. It was coming into sundown, and
Huh.
it's like that's an experience. Like that's like that's a healthy thing that is human to observe the natural world. And Jane Ballard,
Right.
because you started the whole thing
And
almost with beauty. There's some beauty in that for her.
and hold yourself in reserve too. You're not out there wanting to pet the
Right.
owl. You're just out of the way.
And yeah, with even these little birds that look so, I mean, they're owls, man. They're predators, they're hunters, if anything, I wasn't worried about scaring them. I was worried about, are they going to come at me? But I just kind of sat low on the ground there and a safe distance away. But yeah, no, it's like that's something affirmative in the story. Back to your very initial kind of
Sure.
the opening of the conversation of the world, the flora and the fauna emerge uh, tenfold, 1,000-fold. I mean, even that stuff, Paul, was inspired by reading about, like the first, like,
Mhm.
I'm just drawing a blank. What's the famous Audubon, John Audubon?
Yeah.
That guy, like, murdered
Audubon.
millions. He killed more birds than probably any person that ever lived on the planet. But he would describe, and I've read his accounts, like it would be like the sun blotted out, even down here in Florida in the Everglades, like the sun blotted out by the birds. There were that many, it's like if you got rid of a human impact on the planet, I speculate, I mean, in the book, right? You would see those populations just come back. And it's every species, right? I mean, you're in the Northwest. It's like the salmon species are 10% or less of what they were, you know, and these are the species that still persist, right? Like how many have gone extinct, and so yeah. Anyway,
Wow. Wow.
Well, look, think about Chernobyl. People are gone, but the animals have taken off. Even
right?
in
Or
that.
yeah, like Detroit. I've heard those stories of like neighborhoods that just basically, I mean, and that's the world she lives in because it's 15 years. She kind of makes it into the next century. And she describes exactly what you just mentioned, Phoebe, where when they cross the continent,
Yes.
you can imagine, right? Like being from Florida, it's like you don't have to wait 15 years. If you just abandon anything for a season, it's like it's gonna just get subsumed and taken over by all kinds of, plant life, creatures. Um, yeah. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Well, the the reader is going to look at your book and say, "Is this really the end, my friend?"
In my friend,
They're
yeah.
gonna look at you and look at your work and say, "Is this the end?" And you keep the door cracked just a little. You crack the door just a hair, not too much. But there we are. And somebody, when there are only 5 people left on the earth, for sure, and you're willing to, one of those people is willing to go over the side just because she wants to touch some ground again. We have, well, that's the quandary, did we pick the right survivor? Are these the people who are going to carry us all the way? You know,
well, yeah, Jane even says it. I mean, I think it's in the early part of the book, might be in the opening, but stories never end. We just stop telling you what happened. I mean, and in all honesty, I would say that's actually more scientifically true. If you just thought about what is a story, it's an encounter in a time-based world. And it's like, okay, well, it started here and it ended here, but things
sure,
continue, it's I mean, in other words, I'm saying this is true for every story that's ever been uttered, except for mythological type stories, which you could say exist in a circle or a loop. Like I think of the Norse mythology of like, oh, it ends with these gods are slain, but one gets away, and then it's just, oh, it's going to loop back, and then Odin's going to come back to the well, and he's going to see the future, and then the gods are going to slay, and then so like there are types of stories that exist in human history where they're outside of time, but those stories aside, it's an encounter in a time-based world like we know time, that it's finite, that we're going to die, that, there's finitude there. But
yeah,
yeah, there is more to Jane's story. I don't know if I'll tell it, but I don't even know if I know it. I'm not like withholding. I'm just saying I think it's an open-ended kind of a story. Tim O'Brien, I think it was something I remember reading that he said about like what it is to be a storyteller or a writer. And I'm just paraphrasing, but it was the idea that the storyteller isn't answering any questions, or it's just posing and exploring them. And that's what's, I think, happening just in the encounter with Jane Ballard is we're like exploring some questions, exploring a world. But really, I never felt obligated to answer with any like certainty, big questions. Like we know there's some people in this world on the moon, and almost in a utopian strange way, like she mentions there's people on Mars, like what, and nothing else about that. Like who knows,
yes, who
some
knows?
scientists or whatever.
Well, you've given us a lot to think about,
Yeah.
George. This the book the book is a hard read, but it's a real read, and I appreciate it and I thank you.
Paul, thank you so much for everything and your notes on the book and the conversations we had. Really appreciate you, Paul.
Can people see that?
Can people see this book?
Hold it up. Yeah,
Oh, here we go.
there it is. Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Beautiful.
Thank you, Paul.
colorful.
Yeah.
Thank you, George.
Really appreciate you.
Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah.
Anne or Patricia? Well,
Well,
Yeah.
I just think I like how he described his process, or your process is that you wanted to find out what had happened.
mhm.
That it's a dystopian one that you're not, there's not a crisis pushing these people, and the crisis is usually getting food or other people. So I'm curious. I haven't read the book, so you've made me curious. And it doesn't seem to be an enemy or a beast coming over the rise. And it's not a knot that you're untying or a puzzle you're trying to get back together. So, and I like the idea that, yes, you're going to give us a new type of hero or anti-hero, as opposed to the supposedly good-looking blonde men. Yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
well, yeah, like what you've asked and some of what Paul's said and even earlier conversations, I would say in some ways it's also a book that's like a meditation on birds, like which seems like and a meditation on the deserts. It just happens to be embedded in this speculative narrative in a post-human world, but that's what she writes about. It's like how if we kept a bird journal right now, it's like she's
Mhm.
doing that. In fact, that's like the first thing she talks about. It's not even in the book. It's like she meant, I mean, it's not narrativized, but she mentions her first writing was just this impulse to just document. Like it's a human impulse to be, oh, look, I saw these, like I mentioned, I saw the three owls yesterday, but then she starts writing that stuff down. Like I'm seeing these bird populations and the season's shifting, and this is what I'm witnessing. And in the context of this world devoid of humans, I think that's already curious enough, like for me to want to explore it. I mean, I guess you'd say I'm like the first
Yeah.
reader. Oh, okay, I want to explore that. Like she goes to a bird sanctuary post sort of, and the birds are locked in the cage and dead. And that's for her like a really horrific experience that she reflects on.
Wow.
She's not mourning about the loss of humanity in the same way, but then these birds that were pent in the cage, which she wasn't thinking. She says that she's like, I just thought I'd find the birds, not, the birds were locked in these, pens in a animal, not a shelter, but when a bird gets wounded and they're living in these cages, and this rattles her profoundly. Because she has this connection to the animals, they're alive and well.
Yeah. So I'm beginning. I had no idea what the book's about, but now I'm getting the idea that it was focused on birds, and she's the last one. And that scene of her going and seeing that they're dead but the people who had made them dead, so to speak, are all gone except for her. That's a cool idea. So make a good story trying to find out. When you're talking about the last person, if human beings were here, what would survive? In the Northwest, someone always says, well, it's going to be blackberries. And then someone says, no, the Douglas fir will get big and they'll be gone. And
Yeah.
it's always an interesting conversation. And what animal besides birds will it be cats? Will it be coyotes?
Coyotes. Yeah.
Coyotes that's
They're
Sure.
they're taking over every city in the Northwest, and we have so many coyotes.
wow.
Population
And
cats
and,
disappeared.
and in your conversation, the idea about time. Well, okay, we're born on such a day and we die on such a day at such a minute. And what if that's all taken away?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a question that people have asked over time, what's time, what's time? But when you think about it in terms of that, as a human being, you're living during the last cycle of time as we've used it. And also the idea of migrating, the idea that human beings, this must have been people, human beings are good at migrating. I keep thinking,
Required. We needed that to survive, like better than
yeah,
good, our superpower.
Yeah, it's our
Sure.
superpower.
I don't even know.
And as
Yeah.
we're moving along, we have to get along with who's next to us. And I guess it's that way when you go to work every day, or you have a family, that you have to get along with all these people. But I don't know. I think that in human society, there's a lot of ways of backing out. And I don't know
Mhm.
if animals have the capacity to back away or back out or be alone. Anyway, so that's what your conversation brought to my mind as I was making my rhubarb pie.
Oh,
I love it.
Rhubarb pie.
Um,
Oh, John.
Oh,
I mean,
so
I should add too, like the whole thing was written preceding it was a hard timeline I put on myself in this exploration. I wanted to have it finished before the presidential election in the fall. And I was done way advanced of that, but that was a goal. I didn't know what was going to happen when I started. Um, and part of that was like, okay, I want to explore this world a generation or two before this election, like a fork in the road of like human history. That's how I envisioned it and imagined it. Probably a lot of other people too. But yeah, it's interesting what you said. We as humans, the ideological component makes it very difficult for us to connect and have community. That election is like a really strong reflection of that reality. Whereas like creatures of the same species, not a problem, right? It's like it's embedded in the survival of a species. Like, well, we're in it together. The flocks of the birds or whatever the creature she's describing.
yeah.
Um, there's no capacity for an animal other than a human animal to harm its own species. You might say there's like incidents, oh, we got to compete over this territory, but the
yeah,
level of insidiousness that happens in Future X that they reflect on, the only creature capable of that kind of atrocity is humanity.
Well, I have to add, the male of a lot of species like lions, they kill the cubs
Yeah,
because it's a whole, male thing, testosterone, right? I gotta have be with this female, and so I'm gonna kill the cubs that she had with some. I mean, lions do that. Chimps kill each, and there's some examples of homicide or
yeah.
chimp whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's not over ideological crap.
Right. And I mean, killing is part of creatures living. If they're killing
Yeah.
things to eat, think of those owls yesterday. They're definitely hunting like field mice back there.
Oh,
And I mean, it's even just the violence of it. I've seen like a hawk on a
yeah.
on a blue jay once, and
Yeah.
it's like a nightmare. It's like the birds
Yeah.
gasp, screaming for life. Yeah, it's not to paint just a pastoral picture of creatures. It's just that it's the rare exception to the rule for a
Right.
species to
Right.
have species on species violence, whereas with humanity, it
Right.
seems to be like,
you're seeing it through the human eye. That's not
yeah,
violent. Well,
Yeah.
exactly.
when a hawk does it, it's not violent.
Yeah.
Not at
Reckless,
all. Yeah,
you know.
you're
And
right.
but to go back to what Phoebe said is, I think that what's looking through the human eye, what's scary is that human beings to seem to have the capacity to get it together, make a plan, work up emotion, get all the technology together, and kill a whole bunch of people that we decided we didn't like.
Yeah. Get out the lynch mob.
Yeah, like yes, that
Yeah.
small or that large, and to go beyond the need for food on Vashon Island where I live, someone will go, well, I just can't stand that person. And they say, wait till the lights go out, wait till the mud flow comes around your house, then you will find out how much you do like that person. That some type of need um, brings everybody. Ah,
Yeah.
it's such a cliche. Everybody in the community is getting along and looking towards something or other. But it has to be pretty pressing
Yeah.
for the community to do that. Anyway, there's Patricia.
Hi, Anne. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
I do have a question. Have you written other books? I know you've made movies, but do you have other books?
This is my first like novel length story, so no, I guess short answer is no. But I'd always been writing, and sometimes it was nonfiction in terms of like film essays that were kind of like documentaries from a personal point of view, and even Red Earth, like the science fiction film that kind of the last large scale project for me, that, sort of narrative, kind of cross-generational narrative. I started writing that, and it was in prose form, and then but I was always the intention to make a film. Even with Future X, I started writing it. The initial writing of it actually was like, oh, this will be a treatment. I want to make this in a kind of experimental film format that I'm attuned to working in, where it's very epistolary, just like this book is written. It's all pretty much one person's voice. Really two, when you have this dead man character she finds in the desert. But it just sort of happened organically, I guess is what I'm getting at. The next thing I knew, it was like, this is not going to be a film script. That's not going to help me figure out this world. And also, like, what are the strengths of literature versus, thinking about the medium. And, with film, obviously the audio visual medium, but with literature, that one of the things I've just always gravitated towards is that's the medium to get inside somebody's head. Film, that's like almost the antithetical medium for that. It's like heavy-handed, the voiceover. It's anti-filmic in a way. Like, it's film is so much a visual language. With the sound, I always got to add that. It's like it's an audio visual medium. With literature, I could just, in that prose format, just follow this woman's stream of consciousness over 15, it ends up being, I think, 15 years of time. And I mean, honestly, really, I would say it's two books. It's Future X and then this Notes from Lunar Underground, because they merge. It's like, this is the Earth story, and then there's the what you say would be the Moon story. There's another thing happening over these 15 years. And then those two stories converge at the end, kind of like what Paul alluded to a little bit with Jane Ballard getting at the end of her story. But yeah, anyway, first novel, yeah, and it didn't stop. It just kept, it was like turning the faucet on, and it's like, all right, here we go.
That's a good thing.
In the book, the physical book, are both of those strains, narratives or whatever, together page by page? Like, it's one page her notes and the other page the narrative? Or is it paragraphs switch? Or
The like Future X, like the book itself is, I mean, basically, if you think about what is it, it's a found text. It's basically, this woman leaves us this collection of writings, collection of propaganda sheets she'd find in the desert, the documents of the dead man, like, so another person's journal. It's basically like a pure epistolary kind of structure. But if you imagined in this apocalyptic world just being handed, here are these notes that this woman wrote, let's read them. She's sort of like the first and last historian of her, this post-humanity world. So yeah, all epistolary all the time. There's no other voice. There's no other perspective. There's just Jane Ballard.
okay.
And the stuff she's found and collected, which gives us a few other perspectives.
Right. Well, I'll go buy it.
Well, we're going to have September 5th at Hugo House.
Okay.
George and Rena Priest, who won the nonfiction, are both going to be there and reading from their books. So, we'll have a party at Hugo House on September 5th. I'll have to send out a notice soon so people can remember to keep it free. Anyway, thanks for coming, George. Good to meet you again.
Thank you, Phoebe.
And everybody else who showed up. And I hope you guys
Come on.
get the book.
Well, thank you as well again for conversation and the notes in that final phase of finishing the book. Really, really grateful to you all, to you, Paul.
You rose to the occasion.
Oh, it's a hard editor, I'll tell you.
I was so grateful for I mean, it was almost how, like, Jane Ballard's getting these notes from Dead Man, and then she's having this conversation. That was happening in real life, where, I'm getting this voice through because, we were just writing to each other, and your letters really, the book would not be what it ended up in that final, the last stretch, if you will, without your your critical eye and creative eye on it. So
Cool.
really grateful. It was such an enjoyable learning experience too.
I can imagine how when Paul taught at Overlake, I mean, his students, they must have been lucky to have him, but you know, they couldn't be lazy
Sure
ever.
they were. I mean, it's just the depth of analysis and thought, and it was really exciting to read those letters. And then it really inspired me going
Wow.
deep. Which what more could you possibly
Right.
want or hope for
Yeah.
in life as a creative writer? Somebody that's like teaching you in a way, you know, by examining the work. And yeah, Paul. So thank you so much. I'm glad I'll get to see you in person in September and
Yeah.
thank
Yeah.
you face to face. But really appreciate you.
Okay. Goodbye, everybody. We're leaving.
Goodbye.